You decide. You decide what has meaning. You decide how something allows itself to resonate with you. You decide moment to moment. There is no finality with choices, which is, I think that's what grace is. There's no such thing as being stuck. We decide to keep ourselves stuck through our perception, which is also our decision. You decide. It's so simple, but I don't think, and I haven't observed, that most of us understand that we decide. I think we're really interested in explaining and justifying why things are the way they are, but we don't as much explore why we have decided to choose them. I struggle to talk about this because I know that we all have our unique experiences. We're not all the same, and that's exactly the opposite of what I'm being driven to share right now, is that there is no version of perfect, of good or bad choices. There is no such thing. I'm not here trying to demand that you choose better, because what even is that? That's what I'm trying to share, is that there is no hierarchy. We're so used to a hierarchical way of journeying through the knowledge that we have and that we receive. And I heard something today from Cameron Rosin's podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. He said, I'm not going to say this verbatim because I won't remember verbatim, but he said essentially that we are so caught up with knowledge, with the acquisition of knowledge. We're so interested in information and not enough with the integration. Background noise. And I think that really applies distinctly here. There's no single step that is going to forever dictate your life. I think we're so used to seeing plots delineated so clearly and so concrete and black and white in media. And while that is one way of categorization, I think we need to save a lot of space for nuance, because nuance exists whether we want to admit or acknowledge it. The more that we try to define our lives in black and white terms and in the semantics that we've been programmed to use, the less we allow ourselves to see. It's so important that we maintain a plasticity with our thoughts, and not just our thoughts, with our lens. Our choices are not black and white. Life is never, nothing that exists is black and white. Everything is on a sliding spectrum that doesn't end into polarities, but instead is a circle. Not even a circle, more of like an infinity symbol in a 4D representation, a coin. If you can imagine taking a coin and then twisting it like this. I'm a very visual person. I like to envision analogies and symbols in my head. But I digress. If we see the world in a very black and white or in a very linear way, we will make decisions in a very linear, black and white way, and we will box ourselves into black and white decisions, thinking that we only have a limited amount of choices or outcomes. But we don't. You don't. You have the power to take whatever you see in front of you and transform it. Be an artist with it. We talk about people who were once children, artistic, curious children, and grew up to be adults who completely abandon painting, singing, dancing. And that can be seen so blatantly, so overtly. But we don't talk as much about how that happens in all the little microwaves. Not microwave, microwaves. When we're children, we ask so many questions. We are constantly asking, why? And adults give us such concrete black and white answers, and I understand why they do, or why we have. But it doesn't do us any good to continue to paint the world in such contrasting colors instead of allowing them to meld together. And there's a place for a degree of austerity, I suppose, of pragmatism. But nothing can stand alone. It's natural that we go through phases where we lean into extremes just to find a balance. Phases, eras, chapters. It's all part of the learning process so that we take these experiences and we allow ourselves to appropriate our versions of ourselves, integrate them into a beautiful, cohesive being. Sorry if that was loud. A word that has been coming up lately in my sphere is seeking. The relentless seeking. I want to say that feeds into why we want to box ourselves on some level of consciousness. We want to box ourselves in because we just want the answer. We want to stop seeking. And it would be easier to externalize that answer through some sort of tangible answer that's just so perfectly packaged and exactly what we were raised to do. Very textbook, very standardized. But as you know, that's not organic. And we are organic. We have to abide by our nature. Seeking. I think when we're making decisions, the most important question to ask is whether we are choosing something from a place of seeking or from a place of being, embodying. Because as many of us have come to discover in different ways, there is nothing to find outside of ourselves. It's such a depressing existence to chase that dragon. Ultimately, we are beautifully empty. We are this incredible undulating sphere of imagination that is both nothing and everything. And we fill that emptiness with our conscious or unconscious decisions. Taking responsibility for what we choose to internalize, what narratives we choose to continue. It's empowerment. Being honest. Expressing gratitude for the things that you are seeking because they are already you. You are success. You are joy. You are love. And I don't even mean that in, or maybe I do, but I don't mean that in the typical esoteric way. But maybe that is the typical esoteric way. I don't know. You'll have to inform me. But when I say you are love, when I say you are success, I mean that you are capable and responsible of those things. Not just on this metaphysical way that most people will very quickly dismiss. And I'm trying not to dismiss the fact that I tend to express myself that way. But I do want to make my messages accessible. And so I'm being flexible. But I digress. Deep down, you know exactly what decisions you have made and what decisions you want to make. Deep down, there is no doubt and there is no question. It just is. And that's the acceptance. That's the end of seeking. And I think the threshold of that is, but what if that's not enough? But what if my peace and contentment with how it is, with what I do embody, with how I am organically, what if that's not enough? Because we're taught to navigate life in such a hyper-logical, again, concrete way. But where has that gotten us so far? It can do things, but it doesn't do the thing. It doesn't do it for you, does it? No. And so, I think it's worth the risk. To adventure past the bounds of logic, pragmatism, boxes, categorization, separation. Beyond the shame, challenging the shame and the doubt. Challenging it by still choosing the things that make you feel as though by resting, by creating, by being authentic, by being expressive, somehow that's just not enough. Tune into your visions. Allow yourself to be inspired and become that inspiration. Be still knowing that you are inspiration. Claim that victory. Claim that victory. We're not taught to claim those victories, but it's the victory. Acknowledge the power in the discernment, the precision, the power it took to be able to claim that victory. Relish in that joy. Relish in that joy. And then maybe you can observe how things begin to quiet. I don't know if they will. Everyone has a different intention. We don't always know exactly what our intentions are until we slow down. And then maybe we find a more authentic one, and then a more authentic one. Stripping the layers of what we're not, unbecoming, as one might say. Springing for something more that is actually something less. Knowing that the thing that you're afraid of not being enough for you is actually so much more than you could ever ask for. It's lighter. It's somehow more expansive. It takes up the space, but it's airy. And maybe one day it will all make sense in logical terms. Maybe there'll be a point of integration between the two where the logical mind understands and also know its limits and boundaries. knows that there is a picture to paint, even if it's not the full picture, but it still has a grasp on what is happening. You don't have to fall in blindly. You can walk with full clarity and sight. That's the point. That is the point. You don't need to understand, but somehow you will. What's lighter but more expansive? And thus begins a new chapter, a new life, a new beginning. Born anew. Oh, but a sweet babe. And while you're on your journey, just remember that you can always take a deep breath. To notice how something makes you feel. To notice what is happening. To observe the feeling. To watch it roam, see how it changes, how it transforms, how it grows like another life inside of you. Watching how it plays with the other energies around it and within it. Blurring the edges again on this canvas. Eliminating this high contrast. Creating harmony. There doesn't need to be harshness. There doesn't need to be this cruelty about the way that we paint our experiences. You can breathe into them. Observe exactly what it is, what the sensation is that we're holding, and feeling held by that experience. Claiming exactly what it is that you really have been seeking, which is the home within you. You, like this organic earth, are seasonal. You have cycles. There's a cyclical nature to your decisions. Similar ones will come back around. They always do. There is peace and finality because, like it or not, there is never a final goodbye. There's no permanency. And holding space for the transitions in between. making the most out of it, not deciding where it ends. And just observing as each new addition to your decisions continue to unfold. And you have that ability always. It doesn't ever leave you. And so with that, I encourage you to take a deep breath, feeling your belly, your ribs expand, feeling it travel up into your chest, shoulder blades broadening, chest opening. And just let that go. You can take another one with me, ready? Notice what it feels like to be alive today. I love you. You're a rock star. I'm proud of you. And I'm sending you so much support, encouragement. Until next time. Besitos.